Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and film and television adaptations of video games have had a rocky history to say the least. Very few of them have ever achieved being simply good. The primary standout exception to this norm was last year's Arcane, which saw critical acclaim and built an explosive and ravenous fanbase. Netflix, in association with foreign studios, has done it again. The spiritual successor to Arcane is here, and it is Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Following the disastrous launch of Cyberpunk 2077, none would be remiss in assuming that the franchise was dead or would fade into obscurity. However, this anime came out of the blue and rejuvenated the fanbase, skyrocketing the games to new heights. Edgerunners manages to be a love letter to the game while crafting its own narrative and themes. Such love and attention were put into recreating locations, characters, events, and the emotional resonance that made the game's story so good, even if that story was initially hidden beneath a broken interface. Fans from all backgrounds, video games or otherwise, can find so much to enjoy in this rich story. While the world building of Edgerunners is phenomenal and an essential aspect of the series, it's the show's heart and the complex characters that it depicts which have inspired such devotion to it. Tragedies always pull at the heartstrings, yet Edgerunners does so in a far superior way when compared to the majority of modern Hollywood. Within the first episode or two, the audience can implicitly love all the main characters, even the morally gray or evil ones. Edgerunners is a simple story without complex twists or turns, but sometimes simple is all that writers need to do for fans to love it. But before I get any further, there will be spoilers ahead, so spoiler alert. Edgerunners follows a street kid, David, who is pushed to the brink of human endurance by his own need to be strong enough to exist in the turbulent and violent world of Night City. He is unable to protect his mother, his newfound friends, or even himself, forcing him to continually augment his body further and further to make himself strong enough. Ultimately, his superior endurance runs out, and his cybernetic implants take their toll on his mind, sending him over the edge into madness. Only the power of new love can keep him coherent enough to save the woman he loves and send her into a better future, sacrificing himself in the process. There are many themes and complex issues which are addressed and explored in Edgerunners, the majority of which merely exist for the question to be asked, not for a definitive statement to be made. The effect of technological advancement on underdeveloped minds, the allure of strength and power that corrupts, and the lengths of deception someone will go to for a loved ones are all classic sci-fi and general themes. However, they are explored in this series with a new light. Particularly the descent into madness that ends in cyberpsychosis is a fascinating exploration and one that is delved into far more deeply than the source material ever did. David's journey was mirrored by his own mentor, Maine, who succumbed to his chrome early on in the series. Rather than taking Maine's fate as a cautionary tale, David keeps pushing and pushing, his belief that he's built differently compelling him ever onward until there is very little human left. This drive ends with the death of all his friends and comrades except Lucy. She has perhaps the worst fate of all, as she's left alone in a broken and twisted future. Edgerunners exemplifies the point of a tragedy. It may seem meaningless from a cursory glance, but evolves into a cautionary and emotionally compelling tale when the broader implications are explored. Perhaps the best diversion from the games that Edgerunner took was with its protagonist. Cyberpunk 2077 centered around a grizzled and experienced mercenary who was already attuned to the corruptness of Night City and comfortable with augmentation. Edgerunners decided to coax the audience into facing this broken city from the perspective of innocence. David may know and see much of the darker sides of the city, yet he has lived a relatively easy life, sheltered from trauma exceptionally well by his mother. He's experienced very little loss or hardship beyond financial difficulties before the inciting incident of his mother's death. Then, he's thrust into the greedy underbelly of the city, diving headfirst into corruption, crime, and murder. The shock of this sudden immersion is mirrored by the audience's own experience watching these events, giving them an emotional waypoint to relate to David with. This makes David's fall into insanity all the more tragic. While Edgerunner's final antagonist was also featured in the game, Adam Smasher was far more narratively at home within the anime, as he offered the darkest potential in David's own future. In the game, Adam merely had a nebulous history with Johnny, but offered no real thematic or narrative opposition to the protagonist. He was merely an intimidating physical opponent in Cyberpunk 2077. In Edgerunners, his looming, metallic form and twisted mind are a glimpse into David's future if he continues down the path that he set himself upon. Though Adam should have been introduced into the series far earlier to explore this narrative comparison, he still offered an intriguing antagonist for David's final moments. Tragedy and sudden deaths are no new things for modern audiences. However, few hit as hard as the deaths and the final moments of Edgerunners. Becca, in particular, became a near-instant fan favorite with her small, almost childlike personality and stature seeming adverse to her violent and bombastic tendencies. She stood beside David till the very end, doing her best to save his mind as much as his body. However, when Adam comes crashing down from the sky, crushing her, this sudden and heartbreaking end digs deep, leaving a feeling as if her story was left unfulfilled, purposely so. The other moment which hits the hardest is the final of the series, seeing Lucy alone upon the moon, her life's dream fulfilled, but at too high a price. None in the audience would be blamed for feeling a swell of emotion in these closing moments. Tragedy and sudden deaths are no cheap or cliché plot points in Edgerunners meant to get a superficial reaction from the audience. They are beautifully set up and integrated into the story in such a fascinating way that it can be called nothing but excellent. The primary flaws of Edgerunners all derive from a lack of runtime. This is one series that needed to be far longer, with more episodes and a greater runtime. More time for world building and character development would have greatly improved the story and is almost essential to properly exploring David's story. Additionally, more explanation of what the moon meant to Lucy would have helped her story quite a bit. Her wish to go to the moon seems more like a dream vacation than a legitimate escape from the darkness of the world. If just a small amount of exploration had been done to legitimize her wish to go to the moon beyond a desire to see the splendid view, it would have gone a long way to help justify David sacrificing his life to get her there. Perhaps the colony on the moon is a safe haven for those wishing to flee Night City. Regardless, more time was needed to explore this and the descent into cyberpsychosis. And the rabid fans of the anime would not be opposed to more of it at this point. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is an extremely simple, yet compelling story that explores several complex issues without preaching to the audience as so much modern-day Hollywood does. The Japanese influence upon this story gives it an extremely foreign feel, fueled by the beautiful animation. Few animes have had such a broad and overwhelming impact in the Western world as Edgerunners has, and rightfully so. Edgerunners is worthy to stand beside Arcane as one of the best video game adaptations in history. Their art, story, and characters stand head and shoulders above the majority of modern-day entertainment. Edgerunners deserves an 8.5 out of 10 without question. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.